Hello, welcome to Being Reintegrated. This is Tim Wright. Thank you again. I keep saying thank you. It's not really being reintegrated that is taking off. It's the publishing arm. Recently I released Red Lions and White Roses. It is a alchemy book on Semelas' alchemy. Now, at first, it seemed like this book was just, something that needed to be done, and Semelas was secular, and he was kind of out in his own zone, doing his own thing, which is great. But what happened is, since then, I've been able to acquire a new academic book by Brill called Coonroth in Context. And what that does is it essentially gives us what Semelas begins into the further explanation and justification for what Semelas is saying. So some of the claims that they make are that there's symbol sets that are taught all together. However, I never like to leave things to just the claim of an individual scholar or whatever. So I investigate all these claims. So I found, I'm reading through the book itself, which is gorgeous, by the way. A limited edition from Kim Publishing. I gave a small introduction, like a page and a half. So you don't have to put up with me too long. It's primarily Semelas, and it has Semelas' alchemical lectures, both parts 1 and 2. Part 1 was in Aeon magazine or journal, whatever. It was a newspaper that they did in both French and Greek. And it was all part 1 was available in French, and that part 2 was harder to get. So I talked about that in the preface or introduction, that I got this from Paul Edward Rana, and he gave it to me, and he was like, I don't know what you're going to do with it, because I didn't have the extra grade material to understand the profundity of what Semelas was actually saying. So, that being said, he gives a presentation of the geometric symbols of alchemy. And he essentially says the same thing the scholars do, that an alchemical presentation has basic signs. And we know this, but the fact that he knew it in 1918, I think it was, when he wrote this, that's pretty profound. He realized that there was a circle, a cross, a square, and a triangle, and those have different kinds of interpretations. Now, that in and of itself is cool, but what happens is he actually gives a key to the understanding. He talks about the square and how the square has an active-active and a passive-active, and a passive-passive. I think that's what he says. And he says the square has making the active follow after the passive. As shown by its number, every principle is doubled. And thus we find an active-active, an active-passive, a passive-active, and a passive-passive. Now, this is very important because they talk about in some of these magical traditions, the world of Atsulit, the world of Asaya, the world of Bria, and the world of Yatsira. And they talk about different kinds of these combinations, these permutations. So what Semelas does, though, essentially, is he gives us a key to these understandings in the series of lectures. That being said, he also goes into a initiatic understanding of the Yod-He Vav-He, saying that, and these are his words, I didn't translate this, I just made the book available. He says the Yod is the active principle, which is the ego. The non-ego is the He, and they're united by the Va, the connective relation of the ego to the non-ego. Then the action of these three phases is passed on another world or mode, that which in creation is symbolized by the second He. So this is in his alchemy lecture. He's not specifically focusing on Tarot, even though he does talk about Tarot. Now, this system is the continental system. This is why I'm so baffled that he talked about it like that. Pappas in the Tarot of the Bohemians does give a presentation like that, but he doesn't really tell us what Semelas tells us. Also, Semelas tells us that in that lecture, and that's what I was going to do. I was going to go over each lecture and do these little videos to give you some feedback and background on what's being said. Otherwise, you're just reading a bunch of initiatic stuff without context, which is fine, but don't pretend that you know the context when you do not. So, anyway, he talks about in the square, I believe it is, about the 8 lines, 4 of which are horizontal and 4 vertical. So Semelas then talks about operations, which is really cool because if you know the future operations that he's talking about, I mean, I guess I can say the name, but it's actually Isia goes and gives you initiatic operation of these particular geometrical shapes. So it's amazing. You do a 4, you do a 6, and you do an 8 operation in the Isia. So it's profound in and of itself. I think there's only 3. And so what happens is you go through a theurgy, through a kind of real initiatic understanding of the kind of stuff that he's hinting at in that lecture. So I don't know. Now, here's where I'll claim ignorance. I don't know where Isia came from. I don't know if he was part of this Johannite tradition. Your leaders in the Martinist and Illuminist communities can give you information about that. I was told you're not supposed to talk about it, but I'm talking about it. And I have the material, and I understand the material, and I know how it interrelates to other stuff. So, I mean, that's good enough. They barely will even tell you about anything until you're a bishop. And if you are invited to the episcopate, then you may be invited to the Isia, which you may get an understanding by people who may or may not understand what it is. So I made these claims a long time ago that I was going to start revealing this structure, but it takes a little bit of time. My brother, may he rest in peace, Paul Edward Rana, did a book on what is the 3rd or 4th degree of Isia doctrine, which is the Semelas Tarot, which he talks about directly in this lecture. He talks about the Tarot and the 7th Arcana, which I'm going to show. Now, I also did a application called the Rocroi d'Orient Tarot, rcdotarot.com, where you'll be able to get a card of the day, do your journal work with the Tarot of this initiatic line. So if you got the book, go and use the Tarot, and it might help you understand a little bit more. And then if you do understand more, as a SI, a doctrine of the SI, you'll be able to understand what you're doing rather than just some kind of mystagoguery that is only pertains to you and your special attributes. So that's primarily what we're doing here. Is I was shocked when Paul did this presentation on the 10 instructions. I had never heard anything like this. And, I'm a pretty good researcher, but I wasn't able to get to where Paul got. And so he researched the koan as far as he could, did whatever he could, presented to me what he did. And so now I'm trying to follow up on those educational efforts because there was no one like him. The only people that I can ever say were like him were kind of like Semelas and Amadou. but still he had his own direction, which, all his friends are my friends. It's not a biggie. But he had his own direction that he wanted to pull everything. I am very happy to have the Martinist SI degree fall into Semelas, but it's not the Rocroi. The Rocroi is something different. So, we can talk and talk and talk, but some of these things do require operation, which Semelas talks about. So in the first lecture, I'm not tangentially just saying stuff here. In the first lecture, he talks about by a secret operation, the alchemist will communicate to matter this fixed feminine principle, and then this state will be symbolized by the circle crossed by a horizontal bar and named salt. By a corresponding operation, chaotic matter is wrought and is then in possession of the active principle named niter by the adepts, and whose number is 10. Thus, as we can see, these two figures, we have matter endowed with the passive energy, salt, and matter endowed with an active energy, niter. So there's powerful stuff all over Semelas material, and it all interrelates. So if you have the Tarot, or if you go to rcdotarot.com, you'll be able to start getting into this nuance of what he's talking about. Now, I'm having a MP3 played for everyone who goes to the card, so you'll hear, it takes a little bit of work, but you'll hear a presentation of the Rocroi d'Orient Tarot from Semelas's translation that Paul gave us. So I'm furthering it that way. Now, it wasn't a full tarot, so it's only 22 cards. So it'll be good for a card of the day meditation, but it's not a full tarot. I was gonna turn it into a tarot deck, but I did not. And I'm glad I didn't, because you can follow the Tarot of the Bohemians for the major arcana. And then I'm also going to try to publish Stanislav the Guida's 3 volumes of Tarot exegesis. But this is a lot of work. So thanks for purchasing the book. Hopefully this little presentation will help you get kind of into the zone of what Semelas is talking about. You'll have a tool of the Tarot. It'll have those lectures in it. So you'll have visually depicted to you in a journal kind of format, all this stuff. So there's nuance there, because part of what Paul wanted to do was to get everybody involved in the magical journal. So this tarot has a dual purpose of presenting to you the doctrine of the Isia, which this tarot was not even revealed to anybody until they were, like I said, 3rd or 4th degree Isia. And then it'll also help you with your other missions of having a magical journal. It keeps in your computer's memory to be able to go through and look at past journals. So you'll be able to track what you got going on with this intuitive process that you're reading, hearing. Maybe something will pop out at you like it popped out at me while reading the first lecture. So there's always a place where you can grow and expand and amplify your knowledge in this arena of Semelas. So I'm glad I was able to present to you the first lecture of Red Lions and White Roses. Go pick up the book. It helps me to be able to bring you more videos, more instructional things, to be able to reveal to you things that the higher-ups don't know themselves. They pretend, they fake, they think they may know, but they don't really know. So I'm trying to pull open the cookie lid here and give you all the presents, but I can't do it all alone. If you buy the book, it helps tremendously. I'll pay for your domestic shipping in that price, and also because we're taking it from Amazon profits and putting it back into me, the artist. So I'll pay for the shipping domestically. If you need international shipping, it is extra. But right now, I'm just really happy to have delivered a great product, a beautiful book, and then we're doing these lectures to Patreon members that you will or will not get on the YouTube channel. So I'm so grateful to be able to do this work. And thanks for watching all these videos and coming along and purchasing the books. This is your movement. You are the superior incarnu, and I'm trying to give you back teachings that will push your grade into the stature of what it was promised to you to be. So enjoy. I hope that there's many lectures to come, and that we all grow and develop and amplify the knowledge with our wonderful guide, Semelas. Salat Ha.